Okay, so my name is Meghana Linga. I'm a sophomore and I go to Coppell High School in Coppell, Texas. And my research is about stem cell therapy and if it can cure Parkinson's disease. Okay, for some background information, Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disease characterized by the progressive loss of dopaminergic neurons in the substantia nigra area of the brain. So Parkinson's disease is pretty common. Worldwide, it affects over 10 million people, and in the United States, it affects over 1 million people. And the current treatments for Parkinson's disease are temporary, such as levodopa, carbidopa, and deep brain stimulation. So levodopa is the precursor of dopamine. Carbidopa is a drug the patients take with levodopa in order to reduce side effects of levodopa. And deep brain stimulation is the implantation of electrodes in order to alleviate symptoms, but those are all temporary because as neurons get destroyed and destructed, dosages of drugs need to be increased. So patients have to take it all throughout their life. So now let's talk about stem cells. Stem cells are pluripotent, which means they can differentiate into different types of things, and in this case, different types of cells, and they're able to multiply and renew. So what I was researching about is if stem cells could potentially replace the degenerated neurons in the brain to stop or even reverse the progression of Parkinson's. So I'm going to briefly talk about my methodology. In order to get my information, I use sources like PubMed, Google Scholar, and clinicaltrials.gov, and search terms like Parkinson's disease and stem cells. And in order to analyze my information, I first read all the articles, I understood them, I summarized them, and I put it all together in my research paper in a formally ordered. And for my literature review, I'm going to be showing 3 pictures that I have made for my research paper, and I'm going to be briefly explaining them. So this is this graphic that I made shows the key milestones in the development of stem cell therapy for Parkinson's disease. So in 1961, scientists Till and McCullough, they were actually doing a study about radiation and how it affects the bone marrow cells of mice. And while they were looking at the results of that, they noticed that in the mice, their spleens had little nodules or little kind of hard clusters. And those were later found out to be stem cells. And then in 1988, embryonic stem cells were derived from blastocysts. Blastocysts are balls of dividing cells, and it's one of the beginning stages of embryonic development. Embryonic stem cells were derived from these blastocysts. And in 2004, from these blastocysts, dopamine neurons were derived. So because they're pluripotent, they're able to differentiate into a dopamine neuron. And then in 2007, fibroblasts were taken and human-induced pluripotent stem cells were derived. Fibroblasts are skin cells. They're like cells of connective tissue, usually found in the skin. And they took the cells from that. They weren't stem cells at the beginning, but they took the cells from the fibroblast. And in the lab, in vitro, they made it an induced pluripotent stem cell. And it behaves the same as these embryonic stem cells. In 2011, they started the preclinical trials, and they put dopaminergic stem cell grafts in animal models. And because that was successful in 2018, the first human patient was given dopaminergic stem cell grafts in Tokyo. So this is the current status of stem cell therapy. I made this image as well. And so right now, as I said earlier, stem cell therapy is kind of in the clinical research stage. So I'm going to be kind of briefly going over these 5 stages, and it's of the FDA drug development process. So first, the drug or method kind of has to be discovered, obviously, and researched a little bit to make sure that's actually something that like needs to be researched. And then preclinical research means that the drugs or the methods are tested on animals just to kind of ensure that it's like safe. And then the clinical trials, which stem cell therapy for Parkinson's disease is right now. The drugs are tested on people to make sure that it is safe and effective for a human. And then the FDA reviews the data submitted by the clinical and preclinical research, and they decide if they should approve it or not approve it. And then after it's approved, it goes to FDA post-market safety monitoring, which means that while it's out in the general public, they kind of monitor it for the first few like months or years just to make sure that it's actually safe. And then my last image that I made is sources of stem cells. And I kind of talked about this earlier, so I'm gonna make it really brief. But the blastocyst, which is the embryon, the first stage of, or one of the first stages of embryonic development, these can be embryonic stem cells can be derived from these blastocysts, which then differentiate into dopamine neuron precursor cells and then can be transplanted into the brain. And then these fibroblasts, which are the connective tissue skin cells, are reprogrammed in the lab to induce pluripotent cells, and they behave the same as embryonic stem cells, which are then able to become differentiated into dopamine neuron precursor cells and transplanted into the brain. But I didn't really talk about this one, but these are called mesenchymal stem cells, and they're able to be retrieved from bone marrow, umbilical cords, and adipose tissue, which is fat cells. And those can directly be transplanted into the brain. And so now my conclusion. So restating my question, it was, are stem cells a cure for Parkinson's disease? And the answer is, in the near future, most probably. It's pretty likely that stem cells are going to be an important component in the treatment of Parkinson's disease in the future. And there are so many studies and clinical trials in progress all around the world. However, some things that I think we need to address about it are tumor formation, determination of dosage, and administration procedures. Because graft overgrowth can cause tumor formation, and grafting too many stem cells into the brain can also cause tumor formation. So I feel like my contribution to the research was creating graphics that summarize the research and put them all in one place to easily look at. I provided baseline information in my paper. I just put everything there just all at once to look at, and it furthers the research about this topic. So now I'm going to talk about my experience with gifted gabber. So I want to thank Dr. Varkey, Professor Virgil, and Coach Joe. Dr. Varkey's lessons and lectures really helped me to further my knowledge in biology, and he also helped me understand certain concepts that I didn't understand before. He would make sure that we understood by asking us if he should go faster or slower, and actually making sure that we take in the knowledge. Professor Virgil's sessions were engaging, and I thank him for keeping us all on track and getting us to a publishing point in our neuroscience papers. His sessions were really interactive, and he was really optimistic through it all. Now I want to thank Coach Joe, and she facilitated this whole program and made it so that every student enrolled got the help that they needed and would get to a point of publishing in our papers. Overall, my experience at Gifted Gabber was helpful, engaging, and stimulating, and I'm really happy that I was able to be in this program.
Amazing. Thank you for the kind words, Megha. Professor Varkey.
Excellent presentation, Megha. It was a very, properly thought out presentation with whatever information was needed, it was on there. So just a question for you. You talked about the therapy part, but what actually causes the death of neurons in Parkinson's disease? Could you mention that as well?
So Parkinson's disease is kind of like, it has a number of causes. So it can like be because of physical damage as well to the brain or like the spinal cord. It can also be environmental, have environmental causes, and it can also be genetic as well.
Can you name maybe just like one or two proteins which are important in Parkinson's disease?
I think alpha-synuclein, like the Lewy bodies.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So alpha-synuclein, the aggregation of that protein, is very much linked with the death of neurons. That's one of the key proteins that you can remember to talk about. And also maybe look much more deeper into.
Yeah.
Good job, Meghna, and best wishes for your future too.
Thank you.
Thank you.